Hello, lovely souls, and welcome back to the Yoga Socialite Pod. If you're thinking to yourself, welcome back, like this is our first episode, what is she even talking about? That's because many of you know that our podcast was formerly known as the Wealthy Moves Pod. So welcome back to those who knew it as the Wealthy Moves Pod, and welcome to those who now know it as the Yoga Socialite Pod. I'm so very excited to be doing this podcast with all of you. If you are watching this on YouTube or Spotify, and yes, there are video versions of the podcast on YouTube and Spotify, or if you're listening to this on Apple, I'm very happy to be here. We are in our first place of the pod recording, which is the hot seat. I love this chair. I could talk about this chair. Maybe I'll do a chair advertisement later on. We're not going to get into that for those of you who are listening only. I'm going to turn down the brightness a little bit on this video. My goodness, Lord. Okay, so welcome to Yoga Socialite. This is where asana meets aesthetic. This is your space for unfiltered chats about yoga, wellness, and modern life. We're here for the good vibes, the cute fits, and the real talk about balancing a spiritual practice while living your best life. This is less Pilates princess, though we do love Pilates, and more yoga babe with a Louis Neverfull in one hand and a matcha latte in the other hand. So let's get into it. I like to do things short, sweet, and to the point. So should we hop in? So today's podcast episode is the spirit of complaining and why I stopped reading the comment sections on social media. My goodness, y'all, where do we even begin? So if you didn't know, I'm your host, Sabrina Zealous. Probably should have said that in that first minute intro, but you know, it's my first pod back. I'm getting back into the swing of things. I'm your host, Sabrina Zealous, and we are diving into something that I feel like we've all been guilty of. Now, I'm gonna use my laptop. I usually don't use my laptop when I'm doing the pod, but I wanna have my laptop handy because I wrote down some really good facts, and also it matches this aesthetic. I mean, it does match the house just naturally, but it also matches my outfit for today. So as we go into the spirit of complaining, I'm talking about something we've all been guilty of, including myself. I'm raising my hand here. It's that negative spiral that keeps us stuck in lower vibrational energy, quote unquote, bad vibes. I want to talk about why our brains love to default to negativity, why I stopped reading the negative comments on social media, and why we are starting to glorify that. And then practical ways that we can shift out of it. Because what is the point of me having this whole conversation about this if I'm not going to give you tips, tricks, and techniques to help you better yourself as well as me better myself and hold myself accountable? So why do our brains default to the negative? So first things first, if you did not know, and I'm a little bit of a science nerd, I mean, I used to experiment on my sisters as a kid with my little microscope. I'll have to tell you about some of those experiments later. But our brains are wired to focus on the negative. It's called the negative bias. Now, I have a certification in mindfulness, and in that mindfulness, I did a science-based mindfulness program, and this is something that we studied with so very much in that program. There's a survival mechanism from when we were in our caveman days, right? And that is when we have those threats of like predators or lack of food or like, am I gonna die today? You know? So as you fast forward to where we are now, instead of us being concerned about dodging saber-toothed tigers, we're dodging Teslas. We're also dodging those petty comments and passive-aggressive texts from people, okay? The Instagram trolls, all of that stuff. And according to psychologists, that negativity bias means negative experiences are processed more thoroughly by the brain, making them stick with us longer than positive ones. That's why when you go on Google reviews, you might remember the negative review over the positive review that you saw for a company. That's why a lot of times when you are looking at reviews, you go and look at the 1-star reviews first instead of looking at the 5-star reviews. Our brains start to default into where is this coming from? Where is this negativity? And am I going to defend myself against it? That's just what our brains do. And science aside, let's be real. Negativity can become a habit. Now, I'm not saying you have to be happy all the time or it needs to be good vibes all the time. I get that. I totally get that. We're not doing positive toxic culture over here. But what we are talking about is You having the right to choose and to shift your mindset to see the positive and to be the positive and kindness and produce kindness for others as well as yourself. So you read that one bad comment, or you complain to a friend, or you start to get down on yourself. Have you ever had those days where you just start to get down on yourself and you're sitting there like, oh my God, I really don't like this about myself, or I wish I could have done that better, and I can't believe I didn't get everything done on my to-do list, and then you spiral. I like to call it going down the rabbit hole. Alice in Wonderland, shout out, you go down the rabbit hole. And it's like this game of telephone too. Once you start complaining, it can start to spiral into other things. Oh my gosh, I forgot to get my to-do list done. I hope my boss doesn't ask me if I got everything done on my to-do list. Am I gonna get fired? It can go in spiral. It becomes something that it was not even part of the subject matter, has turned into something else. It shifts into this whole thing. I'm gonna lean back in this chair for those of you watching. I forgot this chair has like a little recline version of it, and decided to recline myself. Okay. So with chair news aside, you might be thinking that you're starting to tap into that caveman space, right? You're going into that negativity and you're starting to fuel that flame. Now, what can we do about that? Now, before we get into all the tips of what you can do about that, I want to talk about how society is perpetuating that caveman thinking by glorifying negative comments. Now, this kind of came for me, this whole topic came for me. Originally, my first topic was going to be how I sold all my Louis Vuittons to like be more enlightened and more yogi. And I've talked about that before on the pod, and just like how much my mindset has shifted and how I found this balance of like the practical living as well as like the spiritual practice. But then I was on social one day, and you know how Instagram will give you different topics or like different like posts that may interest you? I clicked on one of the posts that it recommended for me, and I looked at the comment section, and the comment section was just so awful. So awful. Now, mind you, this is probably like 8 in the morning. One, I try not to get on my phone like in that aspect of it that early. Sometimes I respond to messages and stuff, but I try not to get into like the whole gist of it. But this was like a really positive, kind of nice post that I was interested in. I wanted to see what other people were thinking. And some of the comments were just so vile and so ugly and so disgusting. And it's like, who do we think we are to talk about people like this? Like, when did that become okay? And I think it's because the online world, you're not seen. You're not face to face with a person. So you feel this disconnect from this person as a human being, and you would say stuff that you would not normally say to someone's face. We as a society have been glorifying this act for coming for people. Give me the tea, let them read you. We really celebrate that. And when you start to look at the comment sections or Google reviews, the more ruthless people are, the more likes that they get. We've normalized being rude and treating people in a way that we would not treat them in person. And then we try to label it as being honest. And that's not the case. But here's the thing. Our brains aren't built for that kind of constant negativity. That's why we see higher rise now in depression. That's why we see it's harder for many people to manifest, because they're in this negative, lower vibrational energy. That's why we see people having a hard time connecting to other people. And it's because we started to glorify this act of separation and this act of being rude to each other as if it's an okay thing. And we're not like that. We're actually, yes, we have that negative bias in our mind as a way of protection, but we are also a community, and we have a community feel, and that's where we thrive the best. So when I was on TikTok, I've already talked about some of the comment sections that I've seen on Instagram. This also like kind of got reiterated, and why I chose this topic for our first episode is because I was on TikTok, and I hate TikTok, you guys. Hopefully I don't get canceled for this. I am not a TikTok fan. I just am not. It's not my happy place. I think because there's such a short amount of content being thrown at you at once, and it's all like video content. Like Instagram, you have a mix of pictures and videos, and that works better for my brain. TikTok, I see that there's a lot of misinformation and there is a lot of stuff on there that like no one is checking anyone on. So I saw that there was a whole search bar that said Nara Smith smells or Nara Smith's hygiene. And I just thought that was so awful. I'm a Nara Smith stan, okay? I can't cook for anything, but I love watching her cook in her fabulous gowns and I get inspired. I'm like, could I possibly cook? Probably. Am I going to? As many of you know, I will not. But I will send this recipe to Terry and ask him to make it for me, okay? But there was that whole search bar for her, and there were literal strangers who were growing their following by talking crap about her hygiene. They've never met this woman, okay? They have no connection or affiliation with her, but they saw that on the search bar and decided to make whole stories about how they think that she smells. Like, what is that? When did we become a society that treats people like that? And when did that become okay? It's wild to think that the online culture we've built tolerates and rewards that kind of behavior, and algorithms boost controversial and divisive. I can't talk. I like reading what I wrote. I can't even say it. Controversial and dramatic content because it keeps people engaged. And why are we so engaged to that? Why is it easier for us to watch Real Housewife drama than it is for us to pick up a book? Those are questions that you have to answer for yourself. But I think the cost of engagement can be so much deeper, and it creates a culture of negativity and humiliation. And when our brains are already hardwired to feed into that negativity or to remember the negativity, kind of starts to feel like an afterthought. And that is where we want to stop that way of thinking and shift our perspective, not only for the betterment of our brain, not only so that we're radiating at a higher vibrational energy to call in our greatest good, but also to help society rise and grow and be kind to one another. Many of you know my first Instagram was all about #BreKind. That was like my whole platform. I did my whole 300-hour project around that. I think I've talked about this before in the pod, but for those of you who are new, I did most of my yoga studies with YogaWorks, and I was the YogaWorks spokesgirl up until maybe a year and a half ago. And at YogaWorks, we had a 300-hour program that was like a master's program. There's no 300-hour program like the way that YogaWorks used to do their 300-hour program. It was like a master's program, okay? I have a little hummingbird that's visiting me right now as I'm recording this. I'm just taking that as a freaking sign that this is just where I need to be and what I need to do. Anyway, so our 300-hour program, you also had to have a final project, just like in your master's class or in your master's program, you have to have a thesis. And mine was all about #BreKind, spreading kindness to yourself as well as others, and using some things I've learned from my mindfulness training to reiterate that within yourself so that it would feed out into others. And I don't preach that content as much as I used to, but now I see, just like from being in the comment sections and seeing in the search bars of TikTok, that we do need some love and kindness out there again, okay? So the ways that we can start to clean out the spirit of complaining. I'm gonna give you some practical ways. This is stuff that I've done not only in my personal space, like not even just my home space, just like my personal energy, but I've also done this at my yoga studio. I've gone to each section of the room and done an energy cleanse with some incense and some sound. Like we played a sound bowl, and me and my assistant Clarissa, we walked around each little spot of the studio and said, we clear the energy of this space. We clear any energy of complaining, any energy of negative energy, any moments of discontent here. And we called in the energy we wanted to see. So in the lobby, we call in the energy of friendship, of good communication, of speaking kindly to one another, of creating different connections. And we went into every single space and did that. And you can do that in your home. And you can also do that for yourself. You could sit there and you don't even need incense or anything or sound. Sometimes it's nice to have that so you can have a physical representation of it. But you can sit here right now, and I'm going to invite you to do this for me as I start to get into 5 different points that you can also do. So before we even get into those 5 points, let's clear our energy, right? So close your eyes for a moment. 3 cleansing breaths. Big inhale through your nose. Exhale it out of your mouth. Big inhale through the nose. Exhale out of your mouth. One more time. Big inhale through the nose. Exhale out of your mouth. And I want you to repeat after me. I remove any energy that is not mine. I remove any energy that is keeping me at lower vibrations. I remove any energy that is not serving me at my greatest good. And if you are someone who believes in faith, you might pray and ask God to say, God, please remove any energy that does not align with you or align with what you have told me and who you have told me I am. And then we call in the energy that we know is of us. The energy of positivity, the energy of kindness, the energy of optimism. We call into alignment our greatest good, our best selves. Start to call in for yourself, whatever it might be. If you feel like there's something that you need to align within yourself and you want to add in that into your practice, call that in for yourself right now as we remove that negative bias. And I want you, if your eyes are closed, to flutter your eyes open and just welcome all the positivity you called into yourself. Now, how do we get rid or get out of? I'm not going to say get rid, because sometimes you do need to voice your opinions, but how can we do this in a way that is in a mindset of betterment and seeing growth and taking feedback into a positive space to where it's going to be helpful to others? One, we practice gratitude. Start or end your day by writing 3 things you're grateful for. Keep it simple. You could buy the 5-minute journal if you want. That also has a little more prompts in it asking you like, what 3 things do you need to do today to make your day great and things of that nature. You could do that as well. But start or end your day with gratitude, or do both. Start and finish the day with gratitude, not or end. Start and end the day with gratitude. And this sounds so simple. Like, really, I just open the notes section on my phone and type 3 things I'm grateful for in the morning and at night? Yeah, you do. Science backs this up. Studies show that gratitude literally reshapes our neural pathways. You get into your higher level thinking. You get into that frontal cortex, which is like your strong brain, not your lizard caveman brain back here that's like doing whatever it wants, but the brain that has critical thinking. Yeah, it does. It's that simple. Set boundaries for negativity, whether it's skipping the comment section like me, avoiding gossip. I don't do gossip whatsoever. Though I'm a horrible liar. I tell people straight up, and I'm very honest about stuff. And I do it from a place of positivity because I know that I'm not a good liar. So I just try to tell you the way things are in a positive aspect. So set those boundaries, avoid gossip, step back from toxic conversations, protect and shield your energy from that. You don't need to consume into that. You don't need to feed into that. If people around you are doing that, maybe start to consider changing the subject. Flip the script. I've talked about this before, cultivating the opposite. So when you catch yourself complaining, pause and reframe. So for example, oh, I'm so busy. No, I'm so grateful for the opportunities that keep me engaged. It's subtle little shifts like that create so many different possibilities and so many changes in our mindsets. Surround yourself with positivity. Connect with people that lift you up, not drag you down. If you're going through a tough time, reach out to people that you know are going to uplift you, not people that are going to be like, well, girl, I told you, or girl, or I don't have time to talk to you right now. Talk to those people that do. Sometimes even putting on like an old school playlist to lift you up, get your energy going, play that song, think about all those good memories that you had. Sometimes I'll watch old shows that I watched like in high school, like Buffy. I love Buffy. I love old like teenage, high school like stuff that I used to watch. And that like when I have a lot of stuff going on and so many getting pulled in different directions, then I like to tune into that kind of stuff, watching Girls Next Door, all my little guilty pleasure things to like ground me and bring me back into myself and remind myself like, oh my gosh, yeah, like everything's good. Like let me just get this as like my my beacon home, you know? And then of course, move your body. I'm not gonna sell you on yoga, but if you're listening to this podcast, it's called Yoga Socialite, come on now. So like yoga or a hot girl walk or some type of movement just to release stress and boost your mood. Because when you're in motion, it's harder to stay stuck in negativity. All right, beautiful souls. Thank you so much for tuning in to this first episode. Just like I said, short, sweet, and to the point. I didn't go off on too many tangents, though. I mean, some of these tangents I think are helpful to you. I really do. Thank you so much for listening. I want you to have an amazing and fabulous rest of your week, and stay tuned because every Tuesday we're going to have a new episode. And if you have any requests for episodes or something that you want me to talk about, I actually have 15 topics already planned. So we have quite a bit of content that we have ahead of us. But if there's something that you are interested in or you want me to kind of dive deeper in, don't hesitate to comment in the section down below. On Spotify, you can actually leave a little Q&A in there and it'll come to me directly. And if you are on any other platform, you can find me on Yoga Socialite on Instagram. You can always send me a DM. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching, and have a beautiful rest of your day. Stay amazing.